Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thank you for joining us today. Singapore Parenting Festival is proudly presented to you by the Asian Parent and MediaCorp. And a big thank you to our Go partners, PCF Sparkle Tots, DoMax Do Grow, and Scots, and also our content partners, Moms for Life, Dads for Life, Center for Fathering, and Hoya. So today, we will dive into the topic of raise resilient children with 5 C's: confidence, connection, character, coping, and control. And to introduce myself first, I'm Jia Hui from MediaCorp Radio Yes 933. I currently helm the lunchtime belt from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. I'm also a mother of one. I have a daughter, very cute, who has just entered primary 1 this year. So it's a transition year for the both of us, and we're still trying to adapt to the primary school lifestyle. Okay, so now we have our two speakers with us today. First, we have Alvina Chan, Family Life Educator from Moms for Life. She also has appeared in several workshops and talks as well, and also like on radio and online channels. So you might be familiar with Alvina. She is also a mother to 3 teenagers. Next, we have Cheryl Ann Chan. She is the Senior Program Manager of PlayFACTO School. That is the leading premium student care and STEM enrichment school in Singapore, built on the frame of positive education. She has also conducted over 50 workshops for parents and educators to offer insights. So I'm sure we definitely can learn a lot from our 2 speakers today. We will have Alvina right now to tell us more about this, raising courageous children. Alvina?
Hi, Jahui. Thank you for the introduction. I'm so happy to be invited back here to speak at Singapore Parenting Festival. And tonight I'll be talking about raising courageous children. It's wonderful that we have kind of a mixed response to that poll question. And I think it's very understandable. I mean, just like you, right? You were saying that, I have mixed feelings.
Yeah.
There are kids that just seem very naturally fearless, right? So brave. And there are some who just seem so like they just seem very, very extra cautious about certain things. And that's very, very understandable. And I think it also speaks to each individual personality, right? So I think that's something that we should look into as well. But that's a very, very good question to start with. So really, when we talk about courage, right, it's usually something that we view positively. And sometimes we really admire people when we talk about or describe them as being courageous. But where courage is concerned, usually fear is present as well. So we talk about the fear of uncertainty. We talk about having very little control of a situation or the risk of failure. And this fear is not just something that our children face, parents experience this as well. And the PSLE is a prime example of that. All right. I can say this because I consider myself a 3-time PMS, a 3-time PSLE mother survivor. So wow. I wear that bravely, like 3 stripes. Okay, so given that, I just would like to actually say that courage to me is a choice. All right, so it is a choice that we can make while we feel afraid or anxious. So courage isn't the absence of fear or even being fearless. And that's how we usually understand courage, right? Maybe that's why we have parents who think that you are born with courage or you're not. So if we mistake courage for a feeling, what happens is that it confuses us and our children into thinking that, oh, courage can only happen when the fear disappears. But we know that this is not true from our own experience, of course, maybe not our children so much, because we know we can choose to act even when we're afraid or even when we're so unsure of, the outcome. And in school, our children actually are given many, many opportunities to choose courage over fear. And it looks different to different children, right? So it could look like trying something physically challenging. So swinging those monkey bars, climbing that tall frame. Even when I'm saying this, maybe Jahu, you're saying, oh, I'm really nervous just thinking of my P1 kid doing that already, right? So it's more fearful for the parents than it is for the kids sometimes. It could be trying a new sport if you have an older child, making a new friend, asking a question in class, right? Standing up to peer pressure, or even a bully. So the examples I'm giving here is to show that courage doesn't need to look extraordinary. I think we have a lot of Marvel movies coming up and everyone thinks that courage is supposed to look heroic, and it rarely looks that way actually. But what I want to point out is that whenever our children choose courage, what they're doing is they're choosing not to let fear or the risk of failure hold them back from exploring new things or scary things, or even learning a different skill, or standing up and or doing what is right. So I want to point out that despite this choice our children may make, the outcome isn't always positive, or even the best even. So not, we have to be realistic, right? But the point here is that the ongoing process of our children just choosing courage over and over again, it promotes resilience that is not dependent on outcome, not dependent on situation. And we know oftentimes we don't have control over these things. So choosing courage benefits us in many ways. And I want to talk about the four other ways. So firstly, it reduces anxiety levels. So studies have shown that many anxiety problems tend to arise at a fairly young age, before the age of 15. And a separate study on fear and courage in children ages 8 to 13 has shown that higher acts of courage or levels of courage are to some extent linked to lower levels of anxiety symptoms. So what I'm saying is, the more our children experience overcoming their fears and strengthening their willingness to just push through, the less prone they will be to develop anxiety problems. And we know that we would expect that courage also builds confidence. So just imagine your child on the top of a slide and he is terrified, all right? But his friend goes down one by one, and he says, I'm going to go for it. He goes down, bottom of the slide, he reaches there, and then he looks up and he's so proud. He says, I did it. So this act of courage, despite how he initially felt, right, builds his confidence. And the truth about confidence is, right, it develops over time. It really develops over time. It takes that first step first, like courage, right? But it develops over time with increased practice and exposure, to strengthen the skills that they need. And the more opportunities our children get, the greater their chance of success, really. So just as courage builds confidence, right, it also encourages personal growth and independence. So when a child recognizes what it takes to choose courage over fear, they learn to be empathetic of the challenges faced by others. And building empathy in children, it's just so valuable because it helps them to build connections. It helps them to regulate emotions, and it also promotes help-seeking behaviors, which means they're more ready to help others and more willing to receive help from others as well. So I think these are wonderful ways that courage can help. Courage doesn't just benefit our children or us, it also has a very positive impact on others. So even as adults, right, we seek out role models in moments of self-doubt. So our children may be role models to their peers. Children can be empowered when they see their peers choosing to act courageously. So it's a wonderful thing that doesn't just help us, but it has this roll-on spillover effect. So this is just a powerful thing that benefits courage, benefiting everyone all around.
Yeah, I think I think it's great that you're sharing all the benefits, all the pros of having courage and fostering courage in our children. Definitely, I think a lot of advantages. Actually, just now when you mentioned about like climbing up high, right? I suddenly recalled this incident I had with my child. I brought my child to a neighborhood park, and then there was this rock climbing wall. She just wanted to climb higher and higher. I think it was me that has fear rather than her. She was actually fearless, but I was the one who was telling her, don't climb so high, very dangerous. What if you fall down? So I think sometimes, like what you've said just now, we should be giving our children opportunities to fail, to try, to grow. But somehow, I think along the way, is it because of my character as well? Am I the obstacle in her journey to seek courage? I suddenly feel a little bit guilty.
I don't know if you want to know the answer. Is this a question that you want to know the answer to?
Can I? I'll just face the music then.
No, I think I always say that being a parent is the best way to grow, because then you're faced with all these fears because this little one is outside, and this is what we'll talk about later on in one of the things that helps with building courageous children. But yeah, you're right to come at this point to just talk about how you're fearful. And so even before I talk about raising courageous children, I want to talk about how parents might actually get in the way, right? Of course, it's not to feel guilty. I think I think it's very natural for parents to be protective, and we have very good reasons to do that. But sometimes we might be actually hindering a very necessary process in our kids' life, right? So how might parents get in the way? I'm saying there are possibly three things that we might be doing. We overprotect, we
That's
over
me.
control, and we under support. But I mean, you mean it's a
Oh
very natural
no.
instinct. It's a very, very natural instinct.
Mm.
But I think we want to see where it's coming from as well. It's not for us to be taken out from the equation, but of course, it's a whole idea of just taking a moment and just pause, just hold back for a little while, because raising courageous children really involves them understanding taking healthy risks so that we know they will make safe and wise decisions. So I think this is where we are a bit worried. Like if your child is climbing this frame and they've never done it before, so you're worried, do they have the dexterity, do they have a sense of depth perception? And, so these are some things that, it's fair to feel cautious, right? So as parents, that's what our role is, to guide them, to make sure that they understand, have a sort of a body awareness of what they can do, or the risks that they're taking. And of course, we want to make sure that they understand that dangerous, life-threatening situations with potentially tragic consequences should be avoided at all costs. So this is our role, to make sure our children know how to know the difference between these risks that they're taking, so that we know that even though it's something scary for us, that we know that they will make wise decisions, right? So what do I mean when we overprotect? It's when we rush in to solve problems for them. When we rush in to come up with solutions. Oh, why don't you do this? And essentially, I feel that as a parent myself, we are so quick to do this, partly because it's a natural instinct, but also we're trying to protect our children from the discomfort of failure, disappointment, frustration. Because sometimes when they feel that, right, we really relate to that feeling and we feel so bad on their behalf. So, or embarrassed on their behalf. So it's this kind of thing that there are like an extension of us, right? So this is where we overprotect. And in our efforts, we might also over control and micromanage situations. So what I mean is something as simple as play. We might be very, very tempted to promote the kind of play that has a greater chance of success. Or we play games with them when we always let them win. When we keep doing this, right, and micromanage situations, we limit the opportunities that our children need to develop perseverance and resilience as they grow, because they will face even more challenges. So we need to give them that space to develop those skills. So these are very, very important. Another way we might get in the way is we may under support. So raising courageous children usually involve dealing with fear and failure. And if parents struggle with fear and failure, it makes it very, very difficult for us to provide the support and encouragement that our children need to develop healthy ways of coping with these feelings. And so I think it's really important that we support our children and make sure that they develop these healthy ways, because without healthy coping skills, they may become very insecure or distressed when they face uncertainties. So to your question, Jiahui, what's the answer? We look at these these three.
I think hearing, your description, your like presentation, I think I have to start working on myself first.
Oh, that's a very, very mature and insightful thing to say, Jiahui. Well done.
Yay.
Yep,
Yeah,
very,
so
very good.
for those of you who have any questions so far, you can feel free to type it in our Q&A tab. We'll be answering the questions later on at the end of the webinar. And meanwhile, Alvina has even more to share. Okay, our next slide.
Yes.
So,
right. So remember we talked about how, who's more afraid of the climbing frame? Is it the child or the parent? Usually it is the parent, right? But you're so wise, Jiahui, to say, I think I need to start working on myself. So this is why, I aptly put courageous parents, courageous children. All right. So what I would recommend, a good starting point I'll recommend, is to believe that your child is capable. The confidence that we show to our children are internalized by them. So we can simply put, it looks like our children borrowing our confidence. That's what it is. And sometimes that's what our children need, just to take that first step, just to climb that ladder or that rung, right? To just look back and see a parent who believes in them and say, you can do it. I believe in you, right? So a good starting point is to believe your child's capable. Come on, parents. You've seen how your child can navigate through that mobile screen and just swipe, swipe, swipe and do amazing things and search things on their own. They are truly capable. All right. So relating to the poll question that came out earlier was, remember to model your courage and talk about it. So the thing is, we know for ourselves as well, it's not enough to tell someone, hey, you can do it. I believe in you. It's not enough, right? It's not enough to say, don't be afraid. It's not enough to say, be brave, be courageous. Our children need to see that in fact is possible. And when we learn to share, and when we do share our personal stories, our children can see, wow, it is possible. So parents, reflect, ask someone, talk about this, your stories of personal courage. Talk about how you handled failure. Talk about how you overcame fear. Share the moments that you chose courage over fear. The moment we express vulnerability to our children actually find a role model in us. And this actually allows us to actually nurture a very emotionally supportive environment at home. So don't be afraid to talk about your failures, because we're going to face those. Also affirm your child's personal courage. So different children are afraid of different things. And this is why we have some children, we feel, wow, it's super fearless, climb everything. And some children just like, they're in tears, they see a mascot and they're terrified, or whatever it may be, right? So courage looks different to each child. So what I would like parents to do is to find out what is particularly difficult or scary to your children. This is important because so that it helps us to recognize and point it out to our kids when they show personal courage. The more we affirm this courage, their personal courage, the more encouraged they would be to access it each time, because they say, yes, that is what it looks like. That is what it looks like. So it's not like, Iron Man or Spider-Man or Wonder Woman. It's not those heroic acts, but those simple things that I do when I'm scary, I'm going to access it again another time. So affirm your child's personal courage.
Because actually, once they got it done correctly or successfully for the first time, right, and we affirm that, they'll actually remember it. And then the next time when they face another challenge, they remember that, hey, I did it. I succeeded that first time. So I'm going to have confidence and do it again, another different challenge for a second time. So I think it really helps in that way.
It really does, because actually young children, they don't actually necessarily understand the concept of courage. So that's why as parents, we need to understand or recognize what courage looks like for each child. And we point it out. Every time we see it, we say, oh, that was really brave of you to do that, because I know you're so afraid of that, you were so afraid of this the last time and you're doing it this time. Wow, that's really brave of you. And children are like quite natural, right? They just, oh, okay, wow, I think I can try it again. So it's a powerful thing when we acknowledge it. So another thing we should acknowledge is really our children's emotions. So validate your child's emotions. Fear is really intense feeling. We know that. Okay, fear doesn't go away when you grow up. Okay, it might be even scarier as we get older.
Really?
Yeah, but it has a powerful role in cultivating courage. So validating our children's emotions, it really is acknowledging. So it's a simple thing of acknowledging this emotion in our child, and also how intense it is and the effect it has, the impact it has on our child. That's simply what validating is. You might not agree with it or think it's something to be afraid of, but you're validating it for them because that's their experience. And as parents, what we can do is we can follow through by helping them to process the emotions in a very healthy way. So because research has shown, right, that when we put feelings into words, it actually helps to hold back our negative responses to fear. So sometimes we will say, oh, I'm going to toughen up my child. You dismiss the feeling, you suppress the feeling, you tell them overreacting, it's not a big thing, but that's not actually the healthy way to handle it. So let's learn to be comfortable talking about this really strong, people might say negative feelings, because it actually helps our children to have a healthy understanding of emotions as a teacher, emotions as a guide, rather than something to be afraid of, something that has control over them. So validate your child's emotions. One other thing, the final thing I would like to say to close up this BRAVE acronym is to empower your child to solve problems. So this is where I tell parents, anxious parents, just pause, take a moment, and don't be so quick to rush in to fix things. So I want to relate a personal story of mine to this final point. My then 10-year-old, so I have teenagers now, he's a 16, 17-year-old. So my then 10-year-old was experiencing bullying in school. So he was being bullied in school. He was being bullied by the same kids outside of school. So as a parent, it was very heartbreaking for your child to come and tell you these stories, right? So I had to pause and hold my tongue. And instead of going, who are these kids? Tell me, whatever, and this and that, right? I actually asked this question, I calm myself down and say, what are you going to do about it? I mean, your child's coming to you and telling you about being bullied, and you ask him, so what are you going to do about it? So he started telling me all these things that he was planning to do. And I thought, wow, pretty solid plan, and I said, yeah, I think that's a pretty good plan. Go for it. But I also remembered to tell him, but at any point, if you find that your plan is not working the way you want it to, and you need me to step in, just let me know. I am ready. So the goal here is to nurture a sense of control and a sense of autonomy in our children. This is so crucial for our children's mental well-being, because a lot of anxiety problems really stem from a sense of lost control. And the more our children experience control in various aspects of their life, the more confident they will be of their own capabilities to face challenges, to overcome some of these challenges. So these are really, really important things that as parents we can do. So really we can provide that safe and very supportive environment at home for our children to grow, where fears can be faced and failure isn't fatal. So to this, I want to say, let's be courageous parents to raise courageous children so that they will grow to be resilient adults. And if you are interested to find out more about our programs we offer at Center for Fathering, visit our website, fathers.com.sg. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alvina. Actually, we have a few questions coming in. I see several questions on bullying as well. And also we have this question also, which I think we really need you to answer. How far should we parents go to push our kids to be courageous in situations whereby the children are obviously and clearly uncomfortable? For example, if it is a slide, how far should we push them or encourage them before it becomes a bad experience or probably a phobia in the long run for the fear of slides? How far should we go?
Okay, so this is what I always say, right? When it comes to courage, right, we are like the cheerleaders, okay? So we believe that there's something within them, but we also have to recognize that they have different personalities. All right, so we need to also, my personal belief is take the cue from the child. Pay attention to what they are capable of, spatial awareness, on all these other things. So we need to factor all those things in. So don't use yourself as the guide of whether your child is ready or not.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is where we have to start from. How well do you know your child? So if your child say, oh, I cannot do it, and you say, oh, okay, maybe it's frightening right now, you can even connect them. What are you frightened about? So it's really interesting because I've had other parents also coming to me, also asking about the slide. I think a slide might be quite a scary thing in the playground, right? I mean, it gets quite high. But I think take the cue from the child. You might want to say, oh, how about a shorter slide? Or, what is it that you're afraid of? Use these moments of fear and anxiety to be a great opportunity for conversation. Yeah, and then if you want, you can slide with the child.
Yeah,
I think that's a good start. Slide with the child so that they have that comfort. And then after a while, you said, oh, do you want to try it on your own next time when you're ready? So I think it's good to also respect our children and their boundaries and have their own understanding of when they're ready. So that's what I think. That's my advice.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point that we should really have a conversation with the child and connect to understand better. Is he or she afraid of being alone at such a height, or is it of some other reasons, or are there bullies at the top of the slide which we adults, when we don't go up, we are not aware about? It's something
Wow.
like that.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
But it
Yeah,
is true. It is true. There are some bigger kids that are occupying that top space, or just
and
hiding
pushing around. I've seen
in
that
that
also.
tunnel, or hiding in that tunnel. Yeah, I've had little kids as well. Yes.
Yeah, so probably really need to talk to the child to understand more, so that we can help them to overcome their fear. Firstly, to understand. Probably that's the most important thing, right, Alvina?
Very, very important. So take the cue from the child. If anything else, let it be a conversation starter.
Okay, thank you, Alvina, for sharing so much with us, especially that part, the previous slide, courageous parents, courageous children. I'm going to set that quote as my wallpaper. Thank you so much. Okay, next up, we have our next speaker to talk more how we can raise a resilient child. We're going to explore the 5 C's in detail. Next up, we have Cheryl. Hi, Cheryl.
Hi, Jiahui. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here with us and sharing with us more. Okay, so the 5 C's, we see confidence, connection, character, coping, and control.
Yes, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here and to share about the 5 C's. And it's just an extension, of exercising those courageous muscles that Alvina's just shared with us. So as a parent myself, I really know how challenging it can be to raise a child, let alone a resilient one, right? So shall we kickstart with a scenario?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, you can move on to the next slide.
Yes, I'm trying.
Take control. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Well done. So you are joining a new class or a new school. Okay. Imagine that this is your child scenario and you're placing yourself in the shoes of your child. You are nervous, you're anxious and afraid. What do? You have 2 choices of responses. Okay. So try to imagine your tiny self sitting on your left shoulder. Okay, that's self 1. Self 1 will tell you to do this. Be afraid to go to school because I do not know anyone there. Think that nobody likes me and everyone will think I'm weird. I think that's quite a normal response, right? For a child especially. And then imagine your same tiny self sitting on your right shoulder, okay? And that is self 2.
Yes, I see self 2 on your shoulder.
Yeah, self 2, right? So self 2 would tell me to do this. Be brave, be open-minded, and introduce myself to classmates. Even ask them for recess, right? I can use self-affirming words when I'm feeling uncertain and nervous. What would you do? Let's go to a poll.
Okay, let's move on to the poll now, and let's see if our attendees would choose self 1 on the left shoulder or self 2 on the right shoulder. Okay, you can make a choice now. This is another poll for our webinar. Which one would you choose, parents? Self 1 or self 2? And we're going to see the results very, very soon, okay? Be afraid or be brave? I think probably the answer would be quite apparent, right? Okay, the results are out. 21% actually choose self 1, be afraid to go to school because they do not know any friends there. And 79% have chosen self 2, be brave and open-minded and introduce yourself to the classmates, etc. So Cheryl, what do you think?
Well, for those of you who chose self 1, the outcome is that you're likely to try to avoid your classmates, right? And you will inadvertently give off an impression of coldness. So that might hamper your efforts to form friendships. If you had chosen self 2, well, congratulations, because the outcome is that you will enjoy a significantly higher rate of success in making new friends throughout the year. Which self would you hope that your child listens to? Certainly self 2, right?
Self 2. I think it feels more empowering when I visualize all the things that will happen in school when I see self 2. With self 1, I feel actually more anxious. I could actually feel like sweaty palms, etc. So given a choice, of course, I would prefer to feel positive and empowered.
Yeah, exactly. So Wonderful. That is the correct question because, I mean, that's the correct answer because that is the answer of a more resilient child. In fact, I want to show you what resilience looks like in under 50 seconds.
Ah,
Let's
okay.
watch.
Wow, the height is actually quite high for the little girl, actually.
About 50% of her body, right?
Yeah.
Ouch.
Ah, the father encouraging her.
Is it enough?
Is she gonna succeed?
I don't know, but my heart's pounding.
Wow, the joy!
But imagine your daughter on the slide, right?
Yeah. I can see her really with the never say die attitude. It's like really perseverance demonstrating in the body of like a 3-year-old.
Yeah, wasn't that just brilliant? Okay,
Wow.
so what exactly is resilience? Okay, let's define resilience first. It is the ability to adapt and flourish in spite of headwinds and difficulties. But the question all of us ask ourselves is, when should we start teaching our children resilience? Well, from the moment they start experiencing the world on their own and making independent decisions. Why? Because resilience comes from a child's own decision point. Now, is that good news to you or bad news? Are you thinking to yourself, but my child doesn't always make resilient choices? Well, I have good news for you as a parent, okay? Because research has shown repeatedly that resilience is a skill that we can learn. And it's a tool we can use to overcome challenges. So let me share with you the framework of resilience, and then we'll explore how you can help your children develop the tools that they need to navigate through life, okay? So, Jiahui, as
Yes.
parents, do
Okay.
you see my hand? Okay, let me just position it in the middle, right? Do you see my hand?
Yes, I do. And I see a
Good.
very nice manicure.
I'm shy now. I'm embarrassed. Now, can you take out your left hand and
Okay.
put it out in front of you? Now,
Okay.
this index finger is also known as our pointing finger. It directs us and it points us to the right direction. It is therefore confidence. Okay?
Okay.
And why do we wear our wedding rings on our fourth finger? Well, ancient folk believe that the fourth finger links directly to our hearts, and that's why it is connection. The middle finger stands taller than all the other fingers, right? It's tall, it's upright and noble, like character. Oh, can you see my character? Oh, yep, character, right. And then in contrast, the little pinky finger is the shortest and it's the weakest of all fingers. Notice that? It's the weakest link and it's why it represents coping.
Okay.
Now everybody show me your thumbs up here. Thumbs up. Good. Come on, don't be shy. Let's see more thumbs. Okay, good. What does this hand gesture mean? It means all is good, all is under control. And
Control.
that is our fifth C. Okay, everybody got that? Good.
Yes, you got it.
Wonderful. So now let's zoom in on each of these C's. Okay, so we have confidence as our first C. It's your child's belief in their own abilities. So I want to share a personal story too. Since my daughter was little, right, she had this huge desire to rescue and care for animals, big and small. And so when she wanted to set up ARC, okay, it's abbreviation for Animal Rescue Center, we supported her. She wanted to set up a booth. We said, sure, take the living room. And then she wanted to recruit volunteers. We said, sure, where do we sign up? And she tried to recruit everybody she met that month, okay? She persuaded guests, She persuaded neighbors and even our family dog. And after that, her conviction just grew. Her confidence just ballooned and exploded, right? In fact, just over New Year this year, she rescued and gave CPR to a lizard who fell
Wow.
into the water in the ice box.
CPR?
Much to everyone's dismay. Okay, kind of like the expression was like yours, Jiahui.
Oh,
The
very
good-
courageous.
The good news, though, is that the lizard survived.
Wow.
Right. So, what happened back there in the process of her establishment of ARC in our living room? Number one, we gave her encouragement by providing her the physical and moral support she needed for something that she believed so strongly in. And then we offered her positive feedback on something that mattered to her. Every time she practiced her 30-minute long volunteer recruitment pitch to us, we asked her to cut it down to something a little shorter, please. Okay. But most importantly, we gave her the opportunity to experience success, the opportunity to ideate, organize, and carry out something that she came up with all on her own. Remember, she's just a little girl, right? So she succeeded in recruiting other people outside of her immediate family. She tasted the fruits of her own success, and that just made her want to try harder and do more. Well, maybe one day we'll see her shorten her 30-minute pitch down to 2 minutes. Okay. Now, our second C is connection. Okay. It's all about building strong relationships with our children and knowing that challenges and adversities are not exclusive to any one person or any group of persons. All of us face challenges and we don't have to go through them alone. Helping our children build deep and meaningful connections is key to helping them build resilience. To go deep, you could strengthen your connection with your children by having regular and constant check-ins with them every day. This is important, so listen very carefully, okay? Are you listening, Jiahui? Where children are concerned, quality beats quantity. 10 minutes of focused, undistracted attention every day can make a huge difference, all right? Then to go wide, this could mean involving them in interest groups, the communities outside of their classrooms and immediate families. So providing ample opportunities for them to form close relationships with a wider community will help our children cultivate resilience and sensitivity. Our third C tonight is character, and it's about teaching our children right from wrong. Your child's character shapes their identity. It determines their thoughts, their words, and their deeds. Strong traits like perseverance, empathy, integrity can be the tools to help your children navigate life's challenges with grace and resilience. How would you do this? You'd ask me, right? So the short answer is simply by modeling them yourself, okay? A more comprehensive answer would be to turn errors that they make into learning opportunities through reflection. It is very important to note, though, okay, that the presence of fear of punishment would trigger the release of stress hormones that will impede learning new behavior. Okay, building character can also be deliberate in the form of personal development through altruistic service to others. The fourth C is coping, right? The little pinky finger, which is a powerful series of learnable skills to deal with stress and challenges. Remember how fear and anxiety can trigger the release of stress hormones in the body? Well, learning how to cope with such emotions, such strong emotions, is critical to building resilience. So when my nephew was going through a tough time before, we taught him coping skills, right? Like deep breathing, as well as positive self-talk. And do you have a child who frequently goes into emotional meltdowns? Many children go into meltdowns when they are unable to identify and express what they feel inside. So this leads their emotions to just bubble and then erupt like a volcano. And that's why meltdowns occur, right? So using tools like a feel wheel, like what I'm presenting on the screen here, can help your children to identify and express their emotions freely. Our fifth C is control, which is developed when your child understands the impact of his or her own decisions. Giving a child a sense of control can help them feel more empowered and more resilient. So while our instincts to protect our children are very strong, like us mothers do, giving them opportunities to make choices and take ownership over their own lives will lead to a more resilient child. So this might include a somewhat painful and difficult process of having to watch them work through or even suffer some consequences of their own choices. So let me give you an example. When my son was 5, he and I were about to embark on the Changi Coastal Walk. I suggested shoes, of course, right? But he insisted on putting on a pair of beach flip-flops, okay? Clearly a questionable decision. As expected, he ended up with a blistered foot shortly after we began. He wasn't allowed to complain, of course, because he had to take responsibility for his own decision. So this is like our house rule, right? You make your own choice. You can't complain about it after that, okay? It was agonizing, of course, not just for him, but especially for me as a mom too. His foot was hurting, but my heart was hurting more. You know what I mean, right?
Definitely.
Because I was placed in a position where I had to make a choice to allow him to continue with his decision, despite knowing quite sure that it would lead to that painful, nasty blister. Of course, I gave him lots of TLC and blister cream after that. But guess what? The good thing was that he always made sure to choose sensible footwear from that day on. And of course, he made himself that bit much more resilient. So now that I've shared with you the 5 C's framework, let's try our final scenario.
Okay, another poll.
Yes, coming up soon, okay? Imagine your child came home with lower than expected test scores for her math test. What would you do?
Okay, let me help you with the 2 options, then self-1 and self-2, okay?
All right.
Okay, we have self-1 that says you're so poor at maths, you'll never pass the exam by the looks of it. And we have self-2 saying that nobody's perfect. This was better than your last maths test. I can see that you have put in more effort this time. What can we do differently to better prepare for the next test? So parents, you can make your choice now. Okay, this is a scenario for the parent. Will you choose self-1 or self-2 if you encounter this issue at home with a child coming back with a lower than expected score in a test? Self-1 or self-2? Okay, make a choice. We're going to check the results very, very soon, and we'll see how it goes and then how can we deal with it, okay? Okay, I will give it a little bit more time for parents to make their choice, self-1 or self-2. And we have the results coming up very, very soon. And yes, we have 5% saying that they'll choose self-1 and 95% saying that they'll choose self-2. So what do you think, Cheryl?
I think that I would have chosen the same answer as well. Yeah, because that's just going to help our children to build resilience, right? It's very difficult, I know, but it's something that we have to do as parents if we want to help them. So parents, do you now feel empowered and inspired to increase your children's resilience? So let me offer you one more activity that you can do together with your child.
Oh, that'd be great.
And that will help you build your own resilience as well. All right.
Let's move on to the next slide then.
Okay. So this is known as the 3 good things exercise. That's right. Every day, discuss and list down. Yes, thank you, Jiahui. I'm having difficulty controlling my screen. Yeah, list down.
Okay, we have the details on what,
Yes.
and then next we'll have the emotions as well on how, and
That's
we'll have
right.
the analysis on why. So 3 good things: details, emotions, analysis, basically going through what, how, and why. Would you like to tell us more about it?
Yes, of course. So the crucial thing is to tie the choice that you've made with your child on that day, and tie it to how it's led to this good thing happening. Okay, so it's really important to list down details in your journal, to write down your emotions that you felt, and then to analyze and tie it up to the consequence. So in a global scale study conducted by Dr. Martin Seligman, who is the founding father of positive education, test subjects have reported increased happiness, lowered pessimism, greater well-being, and improvements in anxiety and depression. So this same Dr. Martin Seligman designed the PERMA values, whose very principles of positive education are applied at PlayFACTO School to help every child flourish daily. So time for a test, okay, Jiahui?
Yes.
Do you
Now we know
remember
all the
your
five
five
C's. Yes. Okay, using my left hand, I know it's confidence, connection, and then we have character, coping, and control. We have the 5 C's.
Well done, very good. So you have now learned how to build resilience in your child through practicable steps by simply remembering these 5 C's. So in closing, I leave you with this quote by psychologist Raphael Rose. Being resilient means you face stresses, not eliminate them. To be resilient means you learn from your mistake, not avoid making them. Resilience means rebounding from failures and having a life more enriched by them. So I hope you all enjoyed our webinar and that you found these strategies to be helpful to you. I just want you to remember that raising a resilient child is not a journey, but it's a destination, and it takes a process. Okay, it's challenging. I know, as a parent, I do know that. So I wish you all the very best in your parenting journeys.
Thank you, Cheryl. I think the quotes are really very good as well. Another page for my wallpaper. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jiahui.
I'm sure we have learned a lot, okay, how to raise resilient children with the 5 C's: confidence, connection, character, coping, and control. Actually, in addition to the 5 C's, let's also encourage and guide our children to be accepting towards peers who are different from us. Let's say we have new friends, we have acquaintances, we might have different values and beliefs, but actually we can still harmoniously live and integrate together, even with diverse community groups. How can we do that? As you can see from the slide here, we can have open conversations about stereotypes and biases. We can express positive interests in diverse cultures, and we can accept others who are not exactly like us. We can also respect and empathize when navigating different perspectives. And of course, along the way, we have to be respectful and considerate towards each other. Singapore is the melting pot of culture, which we all know about. And also, lastly, I think parents have to do the right thing. I also have to remind myself that we must set good examples, okay? We can be open and take small steps to have conversations with a child for your child to understand the situation much, much better. And then also, now let's take a look at this video.
One coffee for you, sir.
Extra honey, please. Extra honey?
All right, all right. Hey, oh, hey. Oh, hey, oh.
Hi.
Oh, my.
Little kosongu.
All right, all right. All right. My, oh, my, my, oh, my. My, all right, all right, all right. Me, oh, me, oh, me, oh, me. Me, oh,
Thanks for
my,
learning.
me, oh, my. Hey, oh,
Sorry.
hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, hey, oh, my, oh, my, my, oh, my.
Ciao, huh?
All right, all right. Oh, my, oh, my. All right, all right, all right, all right. Me, oh, me, oh, me, oh, me. Me, oh, my, oh, me, oh, my.
interesting video.
Wonderful.
And now let's move on to our Q&A session because we have a lot of questions coming in already in our Q&A tab. Okay, our first question will be for Alvina. We have this question from a parent on how can we support our child to have courage in public speaking?
Okay, I'm not surprised that this question came up. To be honest, my first experience public speaking, I was in tears, really, really in tears. So to find myself in this space, I guess this is my own story of personal courage, right? So yeah, I do have 3 teenagers. So I think I can relate to this because one of my teenagers, she is terrified of public speaking, absolutely. So how do I support? I truly feel, because on the topic of courage, even resilience, right? We're always dealing with the emotional side of things. You know, how do I overcome my feeling of fear? How do I overcome the embarrassment or the anxiety, the nervousness, right? So I think as parents, let's connect first before we list down all the things that your kids can do. Connect with that emotional side of it. I think that is one of the best ways to start. That's the way we can support our children, because we want to validate that feeling that, yes, I believe in you, but I want to validate that you are absolutely terrified about this. And it is not a simple thing to you, the way I see it. So connecting with the emotions, I think, is a great way for parents to support. That's a starting point. Then apart from that, I think really practice, because that's where confidence happens. It's from practice. So things that I did with my daughter was like, why don't you try it with us first, with family first? Or why don't you write it down? So there are all these things that I think, little steps that we can kind of help our children to build that confidence. So I think being their sort of supporter also means allowing them to practice on us. So I think that is where they feel comfortable. And yeah, so I think always connect with the emotional side of it so that they feel heard, they feel validated. And then we can progress to what are some of the practical things that you could support them in terms of public speaking.
Okay, thank you, Alvina. Indeed, I think that a lot of times when we handle children, it's really about handling their emotions, because sometimes we as adults, we don't think like children anymore. Probably we've forgotten how a child would feel in a certain situation. And that's why probably some children, they have like, they're not able to manage or control their emotions well. So the next question will be for Cheryl. We have this question from a parent saying that the child is still unable to control the emotions well, despite the parents' efforts to try positive talk, deep breathing, and tactics from the triple P, such as emotion thermometer and stress box. So meltdown happens even when the emotion is identified, validated, and the child will keep saying that she's unable to control herself. So in this case, any advice on what else the parent can do?
Yeah, well, I would say that this is a really good question, because we are seeing that, because you are right in saying that children deal with emotions a lot more differently than adults do. I think that there are 2 critical factors that can help our children in building resilience. And first is that 2 things we need to remember, right? That first is that our children need our unconditional love, right? To keep trying. And even if they didn't manage to succeed the first time, or even the second time, or even the 10th time, that we continue to allow them to keep trying and to keep encouraging them and pushing them until they succeed. And the second thing that we need to remember is that we have to allow them to experience these failures on their own. And which is that, yes, they've tried it, but they failed, and that's okay, because I'm right here with you and I love you unconditionally, and it's fine, and let's just try again. And when a child develops the confidence from knowing that the parents are there to support them, no matter how many times they failed, that confidence would just keep building and keep growing until they finally believe in themselves and think that, yeah, I can do it. I can try doing it. And I might not be able to do it today. I could maybe try again tomorrow and maybe I'll succeed then. Right?
So actually we require not just the child, but also the parents to have the patience to go through everything with them. It might take more than 10 times. It might take over a year or even like 2 years, 3 years. Hard to say. But it's just that,
Absolutely.
but the thing is that
Absolutely.
we must always be there for them no matter what, until someday they are ready. Maybe they might be the one who automatically out of their own initiative tell you that, hey, daddy, mommy, I want to try this, can I?
Exactly. And I think that another key thing to remember is consistency, that the way that we react and the way that we deal with our children has to be consistent, that we have to think of the end game, that my end game is for you to grow up to be resilient. And it's okay that if you are not succeeding today, but the process of you trying will lead to you growing up into becoming a resilient adult, right? And so I tend to think that sometimes as parents, don't worry, right? Because I'm totally guilty of that myself, which is that we place too much pressure on ourselves to help our children succeed the first time or the second time or the third time even, right? But when we became parents, yes, it was the most courageous thing that we had to do. And no, they didn't come with an instruction manual. And yeah, so we have to just keep trying and tweaking ourselves and just learning to deal with our children's reactions along the way. But keeping our end goal in mind will keep us on the right track, I believe.
Yeah. Also another question for Alvina. There's this parent asking what to do in this situation when the child is actually very dependent on daddy or mommy for everything, and it's really burning the parents out. How can we reduce that reliance, especially probably the child is already quite old? He or she never specify how old the child is, but probably
You mean 30 years old?
maybe primary school. That's what I thought. I
Okay.
assume. Yeah, because usually if it's a preschooler or like below 3 years old, we understand that they are really very reliant, very dependent on the parents. But what if they're actually old enough to do their own things, make their own decisions, but yet they still want to rely on the parents, and the parents are feeling the burnout, which is not very good for the parents' well-being? What would you recommend in this case?
Okay, so I like to go with this quote, right? Parenting isn't about children, it's about parents. I think this is pretty much summing up the whole session webinar for today, really, right? Is it more fearful for the parents or for the children or the parents? Or whatever it is. So this whole, I think, dependence, I would think that as parents, it's about patience, it's about taking time, it's about being too quick. As parents, sometimes we are just so quick, it's faster if I do it. It's a whole thing about waiting it out, right? So I would personally think that, and it could be so many things. I would definitely recommend that a parent sort of prioritize what it is that they top on the list, what they would like to see their child grow in terms of independence or develop a particular skill in a specific area. So it could be like pack your bag. I have had parents talk about how they pack the school bag for the kids and the kids don't pack their own school bags. All right, you look horrified, but we do have parents like that, or kids who don't take put their clothes in the laundry basket, and all those kind of things. So I would definitely recommend that a parent decides, because there could be a number of things, a number of skills. So decide what it is that you would like to prioritize in terms of developing skills. And I think give it to them bite size. And the moment you release that kind of responsibility to the child to develop, don't step in. Yeah, I think that's very important. So prioritize what is a necessary skill that you would like to see your child sort of develop. So it's incremental. You can't expect the child suddenly know how to do everything. It's like setting up a child for failure, right?
So one step
consider
at
that,
a time.
one step at a time. Prioritize that, and of course, don't take back that kind of responsibility. Stand your ground.
It back. Stand the ground. Okay, that's a little bit tough, especially when when it comes to a child, we just give in to whatever he or she requests. As long as,
Exactly. That's
they're
that's
feeling
why
happy
parenting is
about it.
about parents. Parenting is about parents.
Parenthood is so tough. Okay, another question for Cheryl. This is very interesting. Just like you shared about your daughter saving the lizard with CPR, right? And then there's this parent who chose to ask from another angle. It's great that your daughter managed to save the lizard, but what if the CPR wasn't successful? How would you help to restore the child's confidence? Because I'm sure the child will feel very upset knowing that her efforts were in vain.
Well, there is a huge difference between confidence and shaking of confidence and being upset about the lizard not surviving, right? I think that my daughter really wouldn't have been shaken in her confidence. In fact, it would have made her even more maybe desirous to want to save even more animals, having seen what could have happened or what happened to this poor lizard with a delay of intervention from humans, right? And I think that is a result of resilience. You know, when you have managed to build resilience in a child, when they face failure, which does happen to the children and happens to all of us, right? We can't escape that. What happens is that children can look beyond that failure and rebound from it. And instead of thinking that, oh, I failed and I'll never touch another lizard again, instead, it just made her go like, oh gosh, I know that in future I should act faster. Maybe I should, do CPR plus give him a heat pack or something, So it just experiencing, little setbacks and minor setbacks like this is really critical to helping them to learn what is another way of finding success. There is a saying, right? Have you heard it before? That when a person fails, it's just ruling out another way that doesn't lead to success, right? And once you've ruled out all of them, you will find your route to success. And I think it's really important to just remember that being able to experience these minor setbacks is really critical for children. And I'm not talking about just not packing their bags or forgetting to bring their lunch to school. I'm talking about even things that matter to us, but allowing it to matter to them too, by allowing them to experience that sort of setback and failure would help them to then think to themselves, is this really important to me? Or is it only just important to mommy and daddy? And as long as they're worried about it, I don't have to worry about it at all.
So we should always just give the children opportunities to learn along the way as they grow up. We are also giving ourselves opportunities to learn as parents.
Absolutely. Yes. And believe in ourselves, right?
Okay. Parenthood is tough, but we will persevere because it's a job that we can never quit.
Absolutely. And that's why we need webinars like this.
Yes, we have this all the time. Okay, do support us every year, Singapore Parenting Festival. And also we have a lot of questions or rather a lot of requests asking us to recap the 5 C's slides. Can we go through that now? A quick recap for the parents, but I think they also want to take like shots of that so that they can remember it, they can refer to it at any time when they need to. All 5 C's: confidence, connection, character, coping, and control. Cheryl would like to have a quick recap for that.
Yes, so just remember that a child's confidence is a belief in their own abilities. I believe that we have a parent who also mentioned about what if my child was overconfident? And I would say congratulations to you, because you do want your child to be confident and to develop their independence as quickly as possible. But for parents whose children lack that kind of confidence to want to play on the slide on their own, or to go to school on their own, or to go to class, well, you can support them by giving them encouragement. You can support them by hang on, yeah. Providing positive feedback. When they come back to you and ask you, shall I try this? Or you could always ask them, what should you do? What should you try? And if they come back to you with an answer, you could give positive feedback to whatever they're proposing. Maybe you should try doing a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that. So by suggesting it, children will feel less like you're imposing it on them, and that also leads to control. Okay. So
okay,
it
we'll
helps them
just
to yeah.
Yeah,
So it helps them to get
we'll go
control.
through the slides quickly for the
Yeah,
next
sure.
few C's.
Okay.
We have connection, and what do we have on this slide? We can see that for connection, we have
Okay.
knowing that they're not alone in the struggle. We can check in with them. We can have wider relationships.
Yeah.
And our next slide will be on character, and that will be a solid set of morals and values, reflection and service to others, which Cheryl has gone through with us just now. Okay. Okay, we need the parents to take pictures, right? Okay, coping.
Yes.
Okay, let's
so
take a shot of this one first. Character, that's our third C, okay? And then next, moving on, we have our fourth C, and there is coping. Skills to deal with stress and challenges, deep breathing techniques, positive self-talk.
wheel.
It works very well even for adults, to be honest. This one, the feel wheel.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, it's just important to remember not to use the feel wheel when you're feeling emotional, but rather to set aside a time, like a deliberate time to talk about your emotions when everybody's in a calm state. Yeah.
Okay, next
And
for
the
the last
last
C, we
is
have
control.
yes, knowing the impact of decisions, ownership in choices, and taking responsibility. And I remember Cheryl sharing the story of her son refusing to wear shoes, wanted to wear slippers instead. He has to take responsibility for that.
Yes, that's right.
And once again, thank you so much, Alvina and Cheryl, for sharing so much wonderful insights with us, okay? Singapore Parenting Festival 2023 is proudly presented to you by MediaCorp and the Asian Parent. And this is made possible by these key partners. We have our Go partners, PCF Sparkle Thoughts, DoMax Do Grow, and Scots. And we have our content partners. Thank you as well, Moms for Life, Dads for Life, Center for Fathering, and Hoya.